Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review we take a look at the Fitbit Charge 5, Fitbit's latest activity tracker that has added a few features to make it more than just tracking exercise. Fitbit has added some color to the Charge finally, and the Charge 5 is easily the most advanced activity tracker that the company has made. Shouldn't be a surprise because that's typically, obviously, how it goes. But in this case, what it's done is that it's kind of bridged that gap a little bit more between the smartwatches, so like the Fitbit Sense, Fitbit Versa, and this. So it's not a smartwatch, this is definitely more of an activity tracker, but you can see that the lines are starting to blur a little bit, and the main reason why is because of the sensors that are inside. As I'm doing this review, Fitbit has added features that were not available when the Charge 5 launched. The key one is the ECG, the electrocardiogram. So this is a feature that I have been waiting for some time, not because I personally necessarily need it. Thankfully, I don't have a heart condition, but I feel like for those who do, this is kind of like an early warning system. So when you're using the feature, you just apply your thumb and your index finger onto the sides. The sides have sensors here, and it does a reading, and then from there, it'll kind of give you an idea of whether you're kind of normal, what the heartbeat's like, all those basic things, whether there's atrial fibrillation going on. Things that you might need to know. It's not going to give you any context. I'm not going to tell you why any of that's going on. And of course, I'm going to get to that in a bit, as because context really matters here, and there's not a lot of it when it comes to this device. But nevertheless, the fact that it can at least warn you that something seems off and that there's data that you can then share with your doctor is very, very cool, and something worth, I think, at least utilizing if you feel that you need to. The other one is the EDA, so that's the electrodermal activity sensor that was in the Fitbit Sense. It is now also in the Charge 5, and it measures your stress levels. So it'll do you actually have to hold your thumb and finger there for a little bit longer, but you will get a reading from that to kind of gauge how stressed you might be. Now, this is in a lot of ways a holistic approach. So one reading is not necessarily going to tell you a lot, but a bunch of readings will give you an idea of where you're at. And all this, of course, is something that you'll see in the Fitbit app, which it just stores all this data that you're collecting with everything that you're doing with this device. The sensors serve a dual purpose. It's not just to glean the information that they give you when you're using them specifically, but also when you're using them in tandem with everything else. What I mean by that is that Fitbit will take the data that you're getting from those sensors and then combine it with everything else that you're tracking and come up with what's called a daily readiness score. So in this case, how stressed you might be, how restful you may be from the amount of sleep you've had, how much, what your heart rate is at, all that stuff kind of comes together and gives you a daily readiness score to kind of give you an idea, like, is a workout worth doing today? Maybe you need to relax a little bit more, or maybe you've relaxed a little too much and it might be time to get that heart rate going. So you get the idea of the sort of where Fitbit's trying to go with that. Now, the execution for all that does require some work because, again, without context, it's hard to know, well, okay, so is it because I just didn't get enough sleep, or is there something else that is making me feel lethargic? Of course, the Fitbit, the Charge 5, is not going to be able to tell you that. So that's why I say that this is a good window into what might be happening or why you might feel weird or off for a certain, for whatever reason, but it's not going to tell you exactly why that's the case. It may give you a clue, but it's not going to solve the mystery for you, which is why I say I like devices like the Charge 5 primarily as an early warning system, or at least as a benchmark to kind of show you where you might be at, or maybe to reinforce where you feel you're at, if that makes any sense. I say that because the exercise tracking is largely the same here. So the Charge 5 follows in the footsteps of previous Fitbit devices in that you can track various exercises. So you get about 6 by default. You can add others. Of course, you can only have 6 at a time on the device itself, so you will need to subtract and then add others. There's about 20 others or 16 others in total, I believe. So from there, you just kind of pick the ones you want, and then it's easy enough to start an exercise. Built-in GPS will track route and distance while you're outside, so you do have that, which is always nice. but for the most part, in the way that it is tracking activity, it is not that different. A little bit more accurate, I will say, at least I found that it was. Granted, it's not radically different, but at least it is seemingly improved, because I found that it tracked steps a little bit better than it did before, although I was surprised that there's no altimeter in here. So if you're looking to track how many stairs you've done, elevation, maybe you're hiking up a mountain, something like that, this is not going to tell you anything about elevation, unfortunately. For that, you're going to have to get one of Fitbit's smartwatches. So from that standpoint, you get a very familiar look and feel when it comes to tracking your exercises. And then of course, all the sensory stuff that's going on that's tracking the other health metrics, that's supposed to give you this umbrella of data. Key thing though, is that if you're gonna get all this stuff, so daily readiness score, all that stuff, you kind of need Fitbit Premium. So if you are gonna subscribe to that, you get the full gamut of everything that's available, including all the workouts and all that, all the guided meditation practices, all that stuff, the content that was already available on there. You're gonna get that, but it also unlocks a little bit more of the data that you get from all this stuff that's happening in the device. So I feel like if you're going to get the full spectrum, if you will, of everything the Charge 5 does, you kind of need to subscribe to Premium too. It just is how it is, and it's unfortunate, but at this point, it looks like Fitbit is kind of hiding a little bit more than it has before behind its subscription service. A couple last points about fit and battery life. So the straps are different. So if you have a Charge 4, Charge 3, they will not fit on this. This uses a different clipping mechanism. It's nice, it's just not compatible with the older models. You will of course find straps in different types. So this is the rubberized one that comes with the device, but they come in different styles and certainly different materials. Now, battery life is relative. So with built-in GPS and all the sensor stuff going on here, not to mention the color display, if you leave the display on all the time and you're using GPS regularly, you're probably gonna maybe hit 2 days, but beyond that, probably not. Whereas if you don't have the always-on display on and you're using GPS more sparingly, you can go up to a week before you have to recharge this. So battery life is not bad. It just depends on what you're doing with the device. And I find GPS and the always-on display are the biggest battery drainers by a long shot. So if you are moderating those two things, you should be able to go with this for days before you have to recharge it again. One last point I want to mention before I go here is that there are no apps here. So whatever is pre-installed is what you're getting. Unlike Fitbit smartwatches where there are third-party apps that you can download, you cannot do any of that here. Fitbit Pay is available on here, but in Canada, unfortunately, it's really, really limited and not all that useful unless you have a Visa or MasterCard with one of the few issuers or partners that are working with Fitbit on this. But as far as other apps, it's just not going to happen. So if you're looking for Starbucks or anything like that, Spotify even, it's not going to happen. In fact, not only that, you don't even get music playback controls. So if you're listening to music while you're wearing this, you will not even be able to play or pause music. You will have to pull out your phone to do that. Kind of unfortunate. I hope that Fitbit changes that and at least makes it possible to just at least control the music, never mind just selecting it. And that's my review of the Fitbit Charge 5. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.